And today I'm going to launch the beginning of a series that I call How New Yorkers Contribute. Particularly interested in is how different people in different walks of life make a better community and thus a better world. So I'm going to start it off with an artist's picture right here, and we're going to be meeting the artist afterwards. But first I want you to sort of feel the energy of his artwork and the words behind it. So I will start reading what he's written about what I'm holding, and then we're going to talk to him later. Recently, our president, George W. Bush, announced on television that freedom is not free. Who in America doesn't know what that means? It means that each and every one of us has to do what it takes to make our neighborhoods and communities safe. Another American said it differently. He said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country." Living in the United States of America, one should be willing to sacrifice themselves so others in our communities can experience freedom. It is not always about what's in it for you or what you can get out of it. It's about being united and working as a team and protecting each other. It's about working together for each other. If everyone in America knew what freedom is not free is all about, we most certainly would have a much larger military, but instead we have troops who are doing back-to-back tours. Anyone with half a brain could tell you that if our troops continue doing what they're doing with no break in between tours, then what we can expect from most of our troops will not be coming back alive. Then we can expect that most of our troops will not be coming back alive. The ones who do will most likely be disabled physically, mentally, or both. I hope our elected officials will do the right thing for these returning soldiers. If they don't deserve to be in office. Do you want to take over?
Yeah. If I was an elected official, I would create an amendment that would be in the best interest of anyone who gives back to our country by joining the military. I would guarantee that if anyone dedicates themselves for the safety and protection of our freedom and becomes disabled, all of their needs would be taken care of. I figure if a person has the bravery to sacrifice his or her life for our freedom, they should all experience freedom and be treated as heroes and have their needs met when they return, like free medical hospitalization, adequate housing, and free public transportation. If they are capable, I would provide free employment training and job placement opportunities. The fact is, the only way that we can succeed in this war is if we create a brave military of 1,000,001 men and women who are willing to dedicate and sacrifice themselves for the United States of America. If we don't, we will certainly lose this war on terrorism, and all our freedoms and civil liberties will disappear in a blink of an eye. Why don't we have the world's largest military? Who or what is to blame for the lack of morals, ethics, and values that this great country is experiencing? And what can we do about it? I blame the North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement that eliminated over 3.4 million American manufacturing jobs, that affected 3.4 million American families, that affected 3.4 million American children who are still affected today. I see priorities like creating a completely green economy for this country, like implementing cash crops that can be harvested and manufactured into products such as clothes, paper products, soaps, lotions, medical products, and fuel. Just remember that our freedom is not free. In order to experience freedom, we all have to work together for each other. That is what being united is all about. On Election Day, vote for Al and the New World Independent Freedom Party.
So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you Al Duffy. So Al, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul.
And I want to say that I met Al at St. Mark's Church when I was down there to learn more about 9/11 truth. And what I really admired was the etchings, I guess. It seemed like etchings of St. Mark's. What was it, pen and ink?
No, it was Pencil.
Pencil. Yeah. It was just exquisite. And I felt it sort of drew me into a feeling of the tradition of St. Mark's, and that what I was doing, even though it seemed so recent, 9/11 truth, it seemed it had a heritage behind it. And in the same way, I really admire your creativity of what you've done with this project, because so often people have opinions about the war and about military, and it turns out that we don't really understand it very well, what the military is, what the weapons are that we're fighting with, who the enemy is even. And you've put it in a slightly, can you talk about how you came up with this campaign?
Yeah,
I
well,
mean, as an artist?
Well, this story goes back like 3 years ago. About 3 years ago, well, actually 20 years ago.
Start with 20.
I was coming back from a dead show. I don't know if I was coming back or going to. I was hitchhiking. This old man picked me up. He introduced himself as A.D. Gridley. I don't know if that was slang, because on the road everybody changes their name, even me. You know, nobody wants to give out the real name. Anyways, he started telling me about I used to hitchhike after World War II and blah, blah, blah. And he gave me this whole spiel on giving back to the community. And because I was an artist, I drew his portrait, saluting the American flag. Then about 20 years later, I came across his name in a reference book, and or a person with the same initials in the name, A.D. Gridley, who happened to be deceased. He died in the 1860s. So I thought that this was like a sign or from Spirit to take heed to his words about giving back to the community. So I did a project about freedom is not free. It was called The American Spirit, and it's actually, I do have an illustration of it. This may take some time here because it's all scrambled, but
oftentimes people don't think of the artist, particularly in the East Village and sort of the left liberal slant, as thinking of patriotism or really meditating or pondering on these concepts. And yet I sense that there's a story behind this.
Well, yeah, there's a story. Anyways, I was in a small town in upstate New York, and this is where I come from. I come from Utica, New York, but actually I was born in Brooklyn, moved up to Utica and was raised there. And this place was called Clinton, New York. A.D. Gridley was the author of the town who kept all the town's records and wrote short stories on the town. I guess this was the A.D. Gridley, but maybe people just
accidentally picked it up?
Accidentally picked it up, or I don't know. But for some strange reason, he also, during this ride in Arkansas, and this is the other weird coincidence, I have many coincidences. He picked me up outside of Clinton, Arkansas, you know, and to find A.D. Gridley in another village in New York called Clinton.
Really?
I thought that was kind of odd. So I really took it to heart when I just wanted to do a project that commemorated veterans who give back to the community.
Right.
By being firemen or police officers or, you know, whatever.
No, it's true. I think artists will see things that others don't, but I think if others are in a position, I mean, like, I'm not an artist, but at certain points, I was in a place where I would get an insight into another person's perspective. Like most recently in New York, I parked my bicycle in the lobby thinking I was going to be right back, and I wasn't. The bike was gone, and I went through security. I think this is down in Stuyvesant Town, and or Peter Cooper Village, somewhere around there. And when I went through security and they said it's a misdemeanor and you can get a $100 ticket, and, you know, like I should be lucky that I'm getting off with no bike. Well, it turns out they were sort of running me around a bit, and they finally gave me my bike. So I went downstairs to get it, and I'm in the security room where they have all the cameras, and I want to kind of apologize because I left it there for a long time, 40 minutes, and I said, well, you know what I was doing? I was watching, you know, how the World Trade Center came down. And this person goes, we all knew about that. I said, well, how did you know about that? You know, that it couldn't possibly be the official story. And he said, because we're trained to look at cameras. And I realized he had a bank of cameras there that was watching everything. And it gave me an insight into the fact that it's not just the left liberal cool people in the 9/11 truth movement, but it was all of these security men. And I never thought of myself as caste conscious or class conscious, but I had to admit that after months and months, I didn't realize what they knew because I didn't hang with them, I didn't talk to them, I didn't connect. And to me, what you're describing is a way to connect with other people. Here's a veteran, and I think a lot of people don't even want to think about what the veterans are going through. And the people right now in Iraq having these back-to-back tours, it's almost as if it's designed to just morally break them down, if not physically. If they physically return, you know, what have they seen? It's just a thought.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. And that's why I always pay attention. Or, I mean, I think an artist makes you pay attention. And I try in my own way to do my own particular art, just going around and opening my eyes up. And then inviting on my show people who I think can make my world wider, and then also my viewers. And then on YouTube, I have this enormous benefit to get feedback, you know, from people. And to see that, you know, sometimes if I'm off in a wrong direction, and you know, not with nasty labels, but if people give me information, then I'll take another look at something. But I hope you win if you run for office.
Oh no, I hope to win too. Part of my platform or my plan of action is because Mr. Gridley dropped me off in Clinton, Arkansas, and because of Clinton, New York, I thought that I'd start by going to all the states with the village or town of Clinton in them. There's 25 or 26 states that have Clinton in them. And maybe in an offhand way, maybe I'm trying to attract the attention of another person by the name of Clinton. Because really, the one line says it, if I hope our elected officials will do the right thing for these returning soldiers. And if they don't, you don't belong in office. And Hillary, I don't think you can do it.
Wow, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
You know, another story I have with the military was coming from Berkeley, California. I went to replace a friend that I met on a teacher training course. I was doing transcendental meditation then. And she was from Oklahoma and wanted to go to a more advanced course, but she needed somebody to replace her. In those days, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi had been on the Merv Griffin show, and that gave enormous publicity, and the teachers were in demand. We were initiators. We would give people mantras. And she had this entire state of Oklahoma and no teacher, and the state coordinator for Texas in that area needed her and wasn't going to give her permission to go to the advanced training. And I came from Berkeley, California, where there were so many teachers and not enough people to teach. I wanted the experience, so I said I'd go to Oklahoma. So I went to Oklahoma, and it was an incredible experience because I wound up at one point teaching on an Army base at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And when we gave our lecture in 4 parts, it was mental development, physical health, social behavior, and world peace. That was the last one. And, you know, I was in high school when, you know, Mario Savio was speaking in the free speech movement and get out of Vietnam. But it wasn't until I was in Oklahoma years later that, and working with a retired colonel who'd been to Vietnam 3 times, that when I came to that part of the lecture, World Peace, I was absolutely humbled, because we used to find that the most boring part of the lecture. We wanted to talk about cosmic consciousness or levitation or, you know. And when I was in the Army base, sponsored by this colonel, I realized, who cares more about world peace than those people whose lives are at risk in order to make it happen? And the condition of our veterans and what's happening and how they're ill-supported there, I think the horrors that this colonel from Vietnam must have seen, I bet it pales by comparison. And I don't mean to put down what happened in Vietnam, because I have one YouTube viewer who was a Green Hornet, and he says he absolutely can't even begin to say what he saw, because he has children and grandchildren, and he's afraid to. He's afraid of the CIA to say. And I'm saying, no, we must come out, we must speak for the sake of your children and your grandchildren. Although I'm certainly not going to push him. But if he's ready, I would certainly welcome his story and others to come out, so that maybe, you know, the flowery speeches can be offset with some of the reality that artists, maybe this is my way of doing art.
Well, maybe I can help you, because when I started this whole thing 3 years ago, I made copies of my work, and I put patriotic writings on the back of them, and I canvassed them out to veterans, and I found out that a lot of veterans are homeless, you know, and because I was experiencing homelessness myself, they told me a lot of horror stories, and usually I would walk up to them and shake their hand and tell them thanks for serving our country. And some of them cried and held me and stuff, and told me I was the first person to ever thank them, you know. And it's like, Vietnam, I'm the first person to ever thank you. I mean, it's like 25 years after the fact, and I'm the first person that ever thanked you and gave you a picture, you know, or.
Right.
And I'm really surprised that.
It's just
I got more involved, because I really felt that if I could reach out to more people, that there would be more support, and actually there is slowly coming around. I mean, there's all these nonprofits who are getting involved by sending our troops memorabilia or, you know, stuff, and people are getting more involved. And I see other strangers who I don't know walk up to veterans and shake their hand, or people in uniform. I feel that. See, I also am in touch with. Sometimes I feel that I am one of those silent wizards who put forth my intentions, and basically I create my own reality, or I create a reality that affects other people's reality. And I like meditating and taking my thoughts and putting it into action, and watching basically how it unfolds. And I don't know if I'm feeding the cosmic consciousness with it, and it's, you know, doing that, or it's mass consciousness, and I'm just another little seed.
Well, these are important concepts that you're bringing out. I mean, in greater civilizations, or civilizations that have left us noble evidences of refinement and culture, insofar as this warlike nature that human beings have, the leaders were expected that when war had to happen, that they would lead the army. They would be at the front. You know, they weren't behind the scenes and manipulating to get out of the draft, and it was part of the human experience. And I think by understanding that part of ourselves, I think that's the way we can transcend it. not by running away and saying, oh, we don't even want to think about it, because when you don't think about it, that's when the veterans return homeless without adequate health care. That's when everything is so disjointed and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, that you have, you know, staggering no-bid contracts and people making ungodly amounts of money. And 25 years goes by and nobody says thank you for fighting for our country. You know, it's there's many. And another thought that I had towards the end as we were reading this, in ancient Greece, they had a concept of physical immortality, and it could have been from an Egyptian tradition before. And it said that it was absolutely impossible to achieve except in service to the community. And so I think this is something that the limitation of the critical left, because the left is supposed to criticize or to, you know, come out from a different direction, and usually artists assemble around the left to be critical. But what you're describing is being critical of the being critical, and to embrace the patriotism in a more, I don't know, like a renewed, like a born-again way, coming out of the East Village, having seen this. Because I was listening to you on Harold Channer's show, and your appreciation for that part of real estate in this city was deep. And I know at St. Mark's, when I saw your line drawings, it helped me to connect with that whole experience. Because oftentimes I wouldn't feel that comfortable there, all this information coming in, not being able to quite sort it out. And say a vet comes home, do you want to be telling him that 9/11 was an inside job? You know, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Because I've seen you at the church, you know all the stuff I've been exposed to.
Well, I do run into some former veterans that, oh, don't give me that bullshit patriotic shit, you know, or I don't want to hear it, you know, I served my time and that's it, you know, boom. And those are the only people that you can really, well, what do you think 9/11 was an inside job? Do you think 9/11 was an inside job? Do you think all war is an inside job?
Right.
I mean, do you think events are manipulated by governments? You know, it's, because some,
and what do they say?
A lot of these cats are, well, a lot of these men, women are up on it, you know. I mean, they're not dumb and stupid. They
of course not.
They're basically really intelligent, and
oh
they,
yeah,
they,
I mean,
they do get tired of being manipulated. But yeah, no, they're pretty hip on it. That reality has been manipulated by certain forces.
And what do they do for a job when they come back? Because it's tough. You know, one thing, I'm very interested in raw milk, and raw milk is illegal in New York. In California, the farmers can't keep up with demand, and that's another topic we could go into another time. But what I discovered in researching about raw milk, because our dairy farmers are going out of business in upstate New York, they can't keep up with the factory farms down in Arizona, where the poor cows probably never see a blade of grass in their entire life. They're all grain-fed. And I discovered that after World War II, a lot of the veterans were milkmen. They would take the milk and pick it up and then deliver it to people. If I was to perform that service, say I take a nice trip up into the country and I get milk, if I brought it back to the city, it would be illegal. You know, and I thought, we have 4 minutes left, and I thought how really interesting of how much harder times are getting, that you can't even be a milkman. How are some of these veterans making a living?
They're not making a living.
They're not.
So they're just, especially today. I mean. So
they're homeless, and then some of them need some considerable health care, right?
Well, I've done a little research. It seems that many states, like Montana, has the most veterans per capita, and you find that there's a lot of veterans in rural America. You don't find them in the city, or there's probably and maybe because that is because there's more real people there. I mean, more compassionate people. who care about family values and stuff.
And they take them into
and they
their
take
community.
them in. Most vets have told me that when they left the service, their families would not have anything to do with them, or
How much time do we have?
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
3
okay.
minutes.
Okay.
Oh, I thought we had 40
great.
minutes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Let me just end the show and then we'll start the rest.
Okay.
Can we come up on this book? Because what I want to do in the closing minutes of this show before we go on to the next is say that this is a shot of Fritz Tyson. Can you come in tight on this? Yeah. This is Fritz Tyson, and have you seen this picture, and are you aware of the history?
No, I'm not. No.
It's done by an artist named Hartfield in Germany, and he was showing that Hitler was a puppet. Now, these artists in the 30s in Germany, they certainly were aware of the horrors of World War I and what the people went through. And to me, you can see how a lot of artists knew what was going on and were trying to express it through their art. You know, so anyhow.
Yes, I do feel that too. President Bush, I feel, is a puppet. I mean, he's just being used.
This is his father.
Yes, I know.
Right,
Well, one smart man there. I mean,
yeah.
he's being manipulated by his father. Because, you know, when 9/11 took place and the Fahrenheit 9/11 movie came out, and when he was told that we'd been attacked, he basically was in shock. That's why he couldn't move out of that classroom.
Right.
He was in shock. No, he didn't know what to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of different speculations on that.
And that's what my take on it is. And he's put in place, and he knows that his popularity is way down, but it's like if the people really knew, it's really not his fault. I mean, and like I said, NAFTA was something that the Democrats brought in. And the House and the Congress, I mean, Congress passed that with flying colors. So basically it's a Republican-Democrat deal, you know. Everybody made money on it except the American people.
Right, and then certainly the vets that have to, you know, fight for it. Do we have 28 minutes now? I'm not knowing. I should have brought my
Yes,
clock.
we're just at 28 minutes.
Oh, I should.
Over.
Well, you didn't give me any time to conclude.
So we didn't
Well,
close.
why don't you conclude now?
Okay.
Okay.
Conclude it now. Okay.
Thank you for joining me. This is Paula Gloria, and I've been joined by the artist Al Duffy. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Paula, and thanks for having me on.
Great.
I look forward to more.
Great.
Because we have plenty to talk about.
Right. So can you stop the tapes? Because I only have one tape. And then we'll bring on Dan. Being joined by ABC DiCramo. And a lot of my viewers have seen his artwork. Maybe you want to come in on this one. On a lot of the Webster Tarpley call-ins, because I use this as a, can you come in tight on this? Because I use this as a background when Webster Tarpley would call in. And this is the bush monster. I'll change it there like that. It's a little too tight, so, okay, great. Remember that, all of you viewers out there in TV land? So now, let me introduce you to ABC DiCramo. So,
thank you, Paula.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah. Now, I met you in Union Square, and what really fascinated me was that you really understood what a bohemian is. Can you explain to my viewers?
Well, I understood because I come from a long line of bohemians. In the olden days, they were all alcoholics. But now we're in program, half of us. Anyway.
Even from Bohemia? Because
well,
your mother and your father are really from Bohemia.
My grandparents were all from what they called Bohemia, which was a section back then of Austro-Hungary. I'm pretty old, you know. And they came over Ellis Island. And the real Bohemia came from about 1840 in Paris. There was an author, Murger, and he wrote a book, I think it was called The Life of the Bohemians. And this was before everything got squished together. Bohemia was far away, and in Paris they thought, you know, it was kind of like Dixie, that everybody there was just lazy and they sat around playing the violin all day and drinking, which was not the case, but they thought it was a country populated by poetic, artistic gypsies, lazy, ne'er-do-wells, I guess. And of course, some of that is true. At least in my family, I have become that. The black sheep of the family.
I don't think so. I mean, look at
The
you
rest of
couldn't
the
be
family
lazy, ne'er-do-well.
works
Look at
hard.
this artwork. It goes on and on. I mean, wow. Okay, but go on.
Well, that's Bohemia. So from that guy, Murger, in Paris, 1840, 1850, he wrote that book. And then the opera came and the whole tradition of
What's the hopper?
the opera, La
Oh,
Bohème,
Oh,
Mimi
the
up in the
opera.
attic, and
Right.
the starving artists and the musicians and the whoever's up in the attic there
Right.
getting tuberculosis. And then we had the version a few years ago, Rent,
Right.
and I pounded my ass. Why didn't I think of that? I'm not an opera or musical composer, but that was a brilliant, addition, another chapter of the saga of the Bohemians.
What do you think is the attraction of that lifestyle? I mean, I often think that stockbrokers and straight people think they're missing out on something, and yet I know, that the life is a struggle as an artist.
Well, they are missing out on something.
You do it
And we
again if
also
you had the
think-
choice.
I think often, I'm missing out. Why didn't I go to law school? I'm bright enough, I could have.
Who
But
knows? Huh?
what was the question? Who's missing out on what?
What?
It takes all sorts to make a world, they say.
Right.
So, in the olden days, the stockbrokers were not quite as money-grubbing. And in the olden days, which is just half a generation ago, any decent stockbroker in New York would assemble an art collection, right? So we would be
And you guys
hand
would
in
have-
gloves.
You guys would
But
have a
now
chance.
they're buying yachts and houses in the Hamptons.
They don't
and
care about art.
They don't care anymore, unless you're already dead and you got a name like Andy Warhol or Picasso.
Right.
I'm
right.
going to be rich posthumously. I told my
I know,
sister,
you're-
when I'm 20 years, I want you to get a giant piece of granite with gold trim to stick on my grave. Exhume me and get me a bronze casket, but anyway, that's a little morbid, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I believe Bohemians aren't into the sensationalism or the shock value of celebrity. I mean, sometimes I feel if I took from this and put a circle with a red line going through it and basically dissing veterans, I probably would make it into mainstream, and then some yacht owner would buy that,
Right.
But I'd rather just stick
Right.
with tradition and
You sell out, huh?
yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah,
a
well,
good point.
selling out is reaches
you
different
missed,
levels.
You
but-
missed the part that he was talking about his connection with the homeless veterans.
No, I was in the green room.
Oh, so you heard that?
Yes.
Can you tell the story I did a little bit for the last show, how we met at Union Square and what you told me, and then if you have any library book there? we
I
can-
have. We met in Union Square. You had your little booth set up
Right.
with not this book, but another by
It's true. Webster Tarpley.
Webster Tarpley.
But you were
yes.
flipping through it and you found this
Yes.
this picture, and you knew, and I was so
And which
excited.
picture is that? This one?
Because you knew the artist.
Oh, yes. I think everybody should. You'd be surprised who doesn't. They teach you Warhol and
Can we come up on this while he talks about it?
and one of the most important artists, probably the most important political artist
Is the guy
of the
right
century
here.
is, here's his name, John Hartfield.
Okay, let me put that here while they're here. John Hartfield, he did the picture. Okay, now is there the picture in here or not?
I couldn't find that decent one.
You couldn't
I'm
find
not quite
it?
sure.
Okay,
But he has so many great pictures in here.
so tell us about Hartfield.
Hartfield was a German, the era just before World War I. So he was born probably 1890 or so.
Okay,
And then the First World War started, which hasn't finished yet. Now we're in chapter 5 or 6 in Iraq, chapter 7 in Iran, going to be opened soon.
right.
So from many people's point of view, this damned war.
Yeah.
Get the editor. This goddamn war is still going on. Hartfield was born, I think, in Berlin, anyway, in Germany. And he was born Helmut Herzfeld. And at that time, 1916, it was a custom to say, not good morning. You would meet somebody on the street. You weren't supposed to say good morning, but it was kind of like freedom fries or something. They instituted, the government, the Kaiser, where's this picture right here? Instituted a custom that you're supposed to say, goddamn England. Instead of good morning, how are you?
Really?
So Herzfeld, at the time said, I don't like this custom. So he went and tried to change his name legally to an English name, John Hartfield.
Really?
It was she back then, anything English. And especially
Even
with
in
the
Germany?
war going on. Yes, you know, amongst the Bohemians.
So it's amongst the Bohemians, just
Yes.
like what we were saying, you know, where the artists take a critical view of the critical view. Fascinating.
Now we have ripped jeans and stuff. Back then they would save all their pennies to buy secondhand clothes to look like a dandy. So they look, oh, this looks like the Duke of Bedford here.
Oh,
no,
really?
That's Hartfield.
Really?
And he was a little runty guy, was just over 5 feet.
Wow.
But he had, you know, big, what do they call it, moxie.
Yeah.
I don't know what
right.
it is in German.
But that's what he was trying to show with this picture. I mean, it's a lot of nerve, right? You're not going to have
He had a
Tyson be
great
your
deal of nerve.
patron. Who patronized him?
The workers. Hartfield, there was
workers.
a
The
so-called art movement called Dada, which was actually, they say it was cooked up in New York in the test tube here. Maybe some people will know the Hartfield, Marcel Duchamp, and Picabia and Man Ray, and some of those others. And then when the war broke out, 1914, it was like the first hippie movement. People said, young people said, oh, you're getting drafted next week. Go get your hair cut and pack your little kit, because it's a long way from Tipperary. So they said, okay. And then they would run off to Switzerland, or many of them came to draft dodgers, came to New York here,
Really?
Marcel Duchamp, and they were just fed up. You know, this was a war, like George Bush says, to save civilization, to save European civilization,
Right.
whichever side of Europe you were. And they said, no, it's not. It's the end of civilization.
Where's history defeats itself here?
Oh, we have it here.
We're almost out of time? Okay.
And so this is a long history lesson. But these guys, they were in New York, they were in Switzerland, and they were, in essence, just like the hippies you and I knew so well in the 60s.
Right.
These are our grandpas. The draft
Our
dodgers, and
tradition.
they said,
The draft.
this is horrible.
Well, critical thinking is important, and you need a little distance from it. And
This
I
was
think
before I was
artists help us.
converted.
I think, or do we have enough time? How much? A minute or so?
About a minute, yeah.
Okay.
I'll send-
So let's zoom in on this, and you explain it. This has
Well,
been
when I
Paula
was a
Glory
young,
with Farther
now
Down
you
the
see,
Rabbit
when I was
Hole.
a young lad, I swallowed all the propaganda, and I was courted by these courtesans here, these whores. I mean, can
Yeah.
you say that on your
You
show?
were courted? What do you mean?
Well, here I am. They came to my art show in Las Vegas.
You're kidding
These
me.
big, of course I'm kidding.
Oh. Thank you very much.
This is a photo collage.
This is Paula Gloria, and this has been an excursion farther down the rabbit hole with artists. And stay tuned, because we're going to have many more shows on my series, How New Yorkers Contribute. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me
Thank
on
you,
the show.
Paul.
Thank you.
Alan, ABC
pleasure.
DeCramo. So, great. You want to come up on all of us?
3, okay.
So you
this
want to
is
say something from the control room about the Bohemians?
Yeah, go back to like the origins of the Bohemians and how that caught on through the rest of Europe, because that became the premier archetype of the artist from then on out.
Any comment?
That's absolutely true. And it's a mistake, because people in Bohemia are hardworking, much peasants, much industry at that time, heavy industry, like my hometown, Milwaukee. And it was just a false idea, like everybody in